Sup guys, Fat Archon here, bringing another 40k review. Today we're going with the much requested and much awaited Renegade Raiders, aka Red Corsairs. So we're doing a full-on detachment review that covers all their special rules, their enhancements, their stratagems, some units make them pop, and at the end of this I have a few lists I want to show you guys that'll hopefully give you an idea of the different routes you can go. As usual, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. At the very least, if you guys could give the video a thumbs up, that really does help the channel. Obviously, it helps the metrics, gets more eyeballs on the videos, makes me feel better about doing these. Also, too, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, especially if you're a newer player, I'll help anybody, but if you're a newer player especially, don't be afraid to reach out. I will make sure that I get your questions answered, give you any advice, any of that sort of stuff. If you guys have any suggestions on the kind of videos you'd like to see going forward, definitely let me know. Obviously, I want to make stuff that, you guys are interested in, so don't hesitate to reach out. Again, if you got any questions, any suggestions, anything like that, let me know. One last thing, real quick channel update. So we just surpassed 3,000 subscribers, which blows my freaking mind, because literally the other night I was saying ooh, we're almost up to 3K. Now we're cruising right on by it. I couldn't do it without y'all. So if you're watching this right now, whether you're a subscriber or not, if you're watching right now, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. Obviously couldn't do it without you. Lastly, real quick, it's not a big deal. I do have a Patreon set up. I'm not doing this for the money, not even the least bit, but there is some overhead associated. My last internet bill was freaking 150 bucks. I'm kind of dreading my next internet bill because I've been uploading more, so we'll see how that goes. Regardless though, so Renegade Raiders, why are these guys so popular right now? Why can't you bring up a competitive legion without people asking why don't you run Renegade Raiders? So we'll get into the specifics in a moment, but yes, very much I think this is one of the most powerful detachments. It probably is, just baseline, the most powerful detachment rules I've seen in all 10th edition. Now, they do have some stiff competition. Soulforged Warpack, Pact-Bound Zealots, those kind of guys, I would argue they're pretty strong. Veterans of the Long War, I think they're really good as well. But, yes, if you're just looking for the straightforward, I don't want to think about it, I don't need to, come up with a crazy combo or whatever, I just want them to automatically be good from the get-go, yeah, dude, look no further. Renegade Raiders are definitely going to be, the top, detachment, at least in CSM. You are definitely going to be seeing these guys a lot going forward. What I like, though, so maybe you're not a competitive player, maybe you're more in the fluffy stuff or whatever, well, they boost up, every single profile. Every profile gets, brought up a notch or two. So maybe you're like me, you love Possess, but you really hate the AP1. Well, bada bing, bada boom, now now they might be worth their cost, you know? Perfect example, though, is Venomcrawlers. These guys are fantastic, but ooh, that AP1 kind of holds them back. Well, suddenly, that's not nearly as big of an issue. I love it, man, because again, if maybe you're not going competitive, maybe you're looking for more fluffy route or whatever, well, units that normally would suck or subpar or whatever, yeah, man, they all get brought up a notch. So Lord Discordant, he is valid in this detachment. Even at 190 points, he is valid here, man. Ooh, and we'll get into him in a little bit. I'm excited for that part. On top of all that, though, they are bringing some very solid enhancements and some of the better, stratagems you get access to. These guys have nut-so-good stratagems, especially combined with their other rules. You know, being able to add scouts to, a leader, giving reroll hits and wounds to some of your other dudes. The stratagems are nuts, getting advance and charge, all that sort of stuff. Again, we'll get into specifics in a moment, but man, as a complete package, yes, these guys are the complete package, at least for CSM. What's wild to me is we're adding this on top of the CSM, stat lines or whatever. We have some of the more efficient, damage output period. You're just stacking even more on top of that. It gets pretty wild. Also, too, you look at units that are already, fantastic. Warp Talons, you make them even more fantastic. Just wait until we get into the combos or whatever. What blows my freaking mind. So, again, Renegade Raiders, there's definitely a reason that people are talking about them. Now, what's funny is normally this would be the section where I start talking about the downsides, but genuinely, legitimately, I'm not sure they have any downsides. I guess you could say that they're going to be incredibly command point starved. These are the most command point starved legion I can think of. You'll see why when we get to the stratagems, but yes, you're very much going to be wanting to think of you know, ways that you can regen CP or reduce the cost, any of that sort of stuff. You're definitely going to be considering for most of your list. That said, so even from the gameplay point of view, so yes, they're obviously rocking there. On top of that, though, we're talking about freaking Red Corsairs. These guys are freaking space pirates, dude. How often do you get to see that? And they're, done damn good. They're not, the cheesy kind, at least in my opinion. For sure, they have a lot of, they have, a storied history behind them. If I'm not mistaken, they started out as a forgeworld, detachment, so they were, forgeworld only. People loved them so freaking much, and they had such a good story, the Battle of Badab, whatever it's called. People loved them so much that, yes, GW was like, yeah, we'll make them official. Huron, this guy has some of the best lore, at least for CSM, he has some of the best lore. He was, originally a loyalist. The Imperium does what they always did and kind of screwed him over. He tried to kill his ass, and then, of course, he, fell to chaos after that. So if you guys haven't looked up their lore before, 100%, man, definitely check out a lore video or look up the wiki, something, at least for Huron. But Red Corsairs, like, period. These guys are freaking fantastic. But regardless, though, so yeah, straightforward. These guys are just like, they bring nothing but hits, man. It's like, yeah, nothing but hits stacked on top of each other. So I'm very much like, think you will be seeing them a lot going forward. And very much, I think if you're going like the hyper competitive route, so yeah, you're going like a GT or a major or something like that, you don't necessarily have to run Red Corsairs. But what I think is start out, like your first list should probably be Renegade Raiders, and then you make your other list afterwards, and then compare and contrast them with each other. You know, obviously, if you prefer a different playstyle, like me, I'm like drawn to like Soulforge Warpack. I'll probably be running a lot of them just because I love demon engines, like who doesn't? But again, I think like baseline, this is who you're going to be comparing like everybody else to. Anyways though, so with that all out of the way, we can finally hop in the part you've probably all been waiting for, the Detachment Rules. So these guys are definitely popping here. So they got Raiders and Reavers. Ranged weapons equipped by Heretic Astartes models from your army have the Assault ability. And each time a Heretic Astartes model from your army makes an attack that targets a unit within range of an objective marker, improve the armor pin characteristic of that attack by 1. It should be obvious how powerful that is, just like baseline. Now yes, the AP only works if your target's on objective, but guess what? That's literally how you win games, is stealing objectives. So I don't see that as like a downside, like not at all. Like normally the primary target, or one of your primary targets, is going to be the people standing on the objective, so no issue there. On top of that, like I mentioned earlier, you're basically taking any and every unit like up a notch. Possessed, Warp Talons, Chosen, like you name it, man. You're getting a lot of extra use. Vindicators, that's what's awesome too. It works on both melee and shooting. I would have been happy if it's just one or the other. You get both, man. Like you're constantly getting a huge buff. AP is one of the biggest buffs you can get, at least in 10th edition. Covers like universal, so everybody and their mother's getting -1 AP coming in at them, while suddenly you negate that completely. So your units that have AP 1 baseline, well, they get to keep it, even if they're in cover. So like Venomcrawlers, especially gonna love it. Any sort of units like that, gonna love it. Units that don't normally have AP, if you can manage to get somebody not in cover, so like Bikers, they're combi bolters, they're very much gonna get use out of that. I literally had a game last night, and no joke, I won the first turn. I went first, and I literally annihilated like half the guy's army. It was ridiculous, man, and it did make you wonder, like, damn, dude, these guys are pretty strong. Obviously, the armor piercing, like, obviously, that's really, really good, but I think the sneaky good part, the almost just as good, okay, it's not as good, but it's, like, not that far behind, the assault keyword, man. Suddenly, you're getting not only, like, some of, or the, like, killiest Space Marines, you're also getting some of the speediest ones, man. Maybe want to, like, roleplay as an Eldar, you know, something like that. Well, very much, man, you're getting so much use out of that assault keyword. Unless you need to, like, charge something or, you know, something like that, there's literally zero downside to advancing everything. I can't tell you the number of times where I was, like, just an inch or two away from getting line of sight, getting on objective, any of that sort of stuff. And for sure, when I was first learning this detachment, the first few games I had, I would constantly forget it. And yes, a lot of time I'd be like, oh, I'm so close to, oh, wait, that's right, I can advance. So don't forget that. And again, I think that is, like, sneaky ultra good. It also plays directly into, like, secondaries and objective play, especially with the new mission pack that's coming out soon. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more actions, if like that's a more common theme. These guys are going to have no issue whatsoever with it. Also, it combos like especially well with any sort of like advance and charge, which of course these guys get access to like baseline with their stratagems. We'll get to that in a moment. But anything that, like, yeah, advance and charge, anything that modifies your advance and charges, like, that's huge there, too. There's just so many combos stacked on top of each other. The fact you're getting not one, but two incredibly powerful and universally useful abilities all game long definitely puts some power behind these guys. They're definitely, like, in a tier of their own, if you were to ask me. So, that's all well and good, but what about, like, their enhancements? Well, they have some really good options there, too. Now, for sure, some of the other legions, I would argue, have, like, better enhancements, but it's fine, man. You can't win. You can't be, like, the top dog in every single freaking category. That said, some of their enhancements are incredibly powerful. So let's jump into it. The first one they got Despot's Claim. So, Heretic Astartes model only. At the start of your command phase, if the bearer is on the battlefield, roll 1d6, adding 1 to the result if the bearer is wholly within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone. On a 5-up, you gain 1 CP. I want to love this one, but honestly, it's really not that reliable, like, not at all. A 5-up, like, really is inconsistent, and if you think, even if you got to use it all 5 turns, on average, you'd gain maybe 2 command points, a lot of times just 1, so, you know, that does hold it back a little bit there. Now, you can improve it to a 4-up, so obviously you got some value there, but if you do it that way, so maybe, like, Deep Strike a Daemon Prince or Jump Lord or something into your opponent's deployment zone, if you do it that way, it's still a 50-50, and even then, like, the earliest you can do it, most likely, unless you're, like, advancing really far or whatever, the earliest you can do it is turn 2 and beyond, so you're really not gaining that many command points. That said, however, so it is only 15 points. It's really not that expensive. And like I mentioned earlier, this is probably the most, like, command point starved army. I know I say that for pretty much every legion, because it's true. CSM as a whole, like, have really good stratagems. These guys very much are, like, starving for command points. So you're pretty much looking for, like, any way, shape, or form to get more in there. I do think that adds quite a bit of value. So even though I don't really like it, and I don't think it's reliable, I do think it's, like, worthy of consideration, I would say. And actually, I have been tossing it into my list, because again, man, I really, as many CP as I can get. I'm hungry, you know, hungry hippo. Fat Archons, a hungry hippo for those command points. So definitely, at the very least, if you have the points left over at the end, or maybe you're able to change something, make a small change to your list or whatever, I definitely think it's worth, like, testing. I do think it needs more testing to see if it's, like, as bad as at first glance, or maybe, you know, maybe it really is useful. That said, though, so that's the iffy one, but now we get into the others. So we got Dread Reaver. Heretic Starties model only. Each time the bearer makes a melee attack, if the bearer is wholly within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone, you can reroll the hit roll, and you can reroll the wound roll. So I actually really like this one, even with the hoop of having to be within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone, with some of the stratagems and the fact that we have assaults and all that sort of stuff, like, that's really not going to be that hard. That's going to be fairly common or relatively common to do, especially if you, like, base your strategy around it. So again, Winged Daemon Prince, he would have no issue. Lord Discordant, he loves it. I have tested it that way. Jump Lord, all those sort of stuff. Even regular, like, foot guys, you're going to be able to get up the board relatively quick. Again, you got assault, you got advanced and charge, you got all that sort of stuff, so I'll come up a lot more than you think. 15 points for reroll all hits, all wounds on a big beat stick like a Demon Prince or whatever. Very much I like that. So I wouldn't call it an auto-include at all, but again, just like Despot's claim, if you've got the points left over at the end, very much I would, like, consider tossing that in. You guys are going to notice as we go through these enhancements. First of all, they're pretty spendy. They do have the most enhancements, even more expensive than Chaos Cults, as crazy as that is. So finding points for them is going to be kind of fun. Definitely, I know I have been tempted to throw, like, every single enhancement in most of my lists, but you're probably going to have to cut some, you know, depends on the list you're running, but do bear that in mind. Alright, next up, we got probably the best one. So you got Mark of the Hound. Heretic Starties model only. Models in the bearer's unit have the Scout's 6-inch ability. So this one's really freaking expensive. It's 25 points. Very, very spendy. But I think in the majority of cases, it's worth it, man. One reason being, like, don't forget, so if the entire unit that's within it has the Scout's ability, your transports get Scout as well. I believe it's only dedicated transport, so I think only the Rhino. I don't think the Land Raider takes advantage of that. But regardless, man, Rhinos are one of the very best, like, transports in the game. Almost every CSM list has at least one. And by the way, Renegade Raiders, I should have mentioned that in the early. Very much you're going to have transports. You're going to have, like, 2 to 3 I could even see 4 of them. Like, very much you're going to be bringing transports. So that's wild, man. You can forward deploy your Rhino, so you can put it right on the line of the deployment zone. If you go first, bada bing, bada boom, man. I have a near, well, not near guaranteed, but I have pretty good odds of a first turn charge, or just get on the objective, whatever the reason is. If you go second, though, cool, man, I'm just gonna, like, retreat behind line of sight. Maybe you're on a good board and it has, like, good line of sight blocking, so you just hide behind, like, you know, some sort of cover in the middle. Definitely lots of value there. 25 points is spendy, but again, I think it's like, how I would probably do it, I would start my list with that in it, and then if I need those points, if I, like, desperately need them, then I would cut it out. Because yes, I don't think I have seen some people saying, like, every single list that goes in it. I don't think you have to. 25 points is, like, pretty up there, and for sure, you know, 6 inches, it is ultra valuable, but it's not, like, a must-have. One other thing I love about it, Lord Discordant, he gets a lot of use out of that. If you're like me, if you're Lord Discordant like Nutso, if you're, like, you know, engaged to this man, like I am, that is one of the best, like, enhancements you can put on him. Now, he does get really spendy when you go that way. He goes to 205, but regardless, I have had test games with him, and he's actually done really good. And when you see the stratagems and stuff that you can toss on top of it, yes, I definitely like it there. Alright, last up, we've got Tyrant's Lash. So, Heretic Starties model only, you can reroll advanced rolls made for the bearer's unit, and the bearer's unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it fell back. So, I want to love this one because at first glance it is pretty powerful, man. Reroll advances, and the fact that we have access to advance and charge, like, and don't forget, you have the assault keyword, so, like, the advances, even if you don't charge, you're still getting value there. The fallback and shoot, like, that's very powerful as well. Again, that plays directly into doing secondaries and actions, so, like, that's all money. My issue, though, it's 20 points. A lot of the units you would throw it on, like, they don't necessarily need it. Like, Chosen, a Chaos Lord on Chosen, like, do they really need that? The reroll advance, it does have value, but I'm not super sold on it. I could see, like, Master Possession, he would probably love it, because he gets the +1 to the advances on top of it. Again, you get super easy access to advance and charge, so anything that, like, boosts that, like, you very much are looking into. I could see, like, it's funny, I think, like, Havocs would love it the most, because then Havocs could get extra movement. Normally they only move 5 inches, now, and you can advance and shoot. Well, now you can reroll your advances, maybe get, like, 9 inches average, but the only unit you can add to him is, like, a Warpsmith, and that's only for the memes. Like, yeah, nobody attaches Warpsmiths to Havocs. Sadly, I really wish GW would fix that, but regardless. Overall, while these enhancements aren't necessarily anything like ground-shattering or anything, they're all very solid, man. Mark of the Hound, ultra good. Dread Reaver, I think that's totally great. Even the CP regen, like, I think it's worth considering. Tyrant Slash, time will tell if that's actually, like, something you do want to include all the time. So these guys are sitting, like, damn pretty, just on enhancements alone. I am, like, it's totally fine with me that none of them are, like, busted over the top. The reroll hits and wounds, like, that is incredibly strong, but luckily, I guess, quote-unquote, it has that rider on it, the hoop you gotta jump through, because, yeah, dude, this detachment's, like, good enough. They don't need the best relics in the game on top of that. Granted, you know, that would be fine with me, but still, yes, you know, gotta have the internal balance. But regardless, so those are fine, but what about the stratagems? So this is definitely a section where Renegade Raiders, like, especially shine. They pretty much every single one of their stratagems is, like, really damn good, and, like, you want to use every single turn. Like I said in the beginning, these guys are going to be exceptionally CP hungry. These guys want, like, command points left and right. You know, hungry hippo, man. As much as you can possibly get. What I really love is it unlocks, like, combos and sneaky plays and that sort of stuff. Very much you're going to be, like, planning your turns out because of these stratagems, especially the advance and charge, and yeah, we'll get into it. Also, too, something to bear in mind, they have 3 incredibly good battle tactics. So lords are going to be, like, super gaining value in this detachment. I think they're going to be a really common sight because of that. And again, some of the combos you can unlock, Warp Talons, man, oh, they get, like, busted good with this detachment specifically. They're already fantastic baseline. When you start adding on the additional AP and some of the other stuff that we'll get to in a moment, like, my god, man. Alright, so 4 stratagems. First up, we've got Unfailingly Obdurate. In your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, you can choose 1 Heretic Astartes unit from your army, excluding Damned, that was selected as the target. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, worsen the armor pin characteristic by 1. So, we're already starting off with a banger here. Armor Contempt is strong like any and everywhere you see it, and these guys are obviously no exception. Best of all, it's a battle tactic. So yeah, dude, you got the wombo combo of not only being exceptionally strong, but it's also spammable. You can use it twice every single turn, and that very much is like something you'd be considering doing. Where I think it'll be, like, especially strong is mirror matches, which very much is going to come up, man. At the next, like, for the next month or two, like, every tournament you go to, anytime you see CSM, there's, like, a, I don't know, 80% chance they're going to be Renegade Raiders. Well, suddenly, that's going to help negate their detachment rule, so that's pretty big there, even versus other armies, especially armies with just, like, low AP, man. Maybe they aren't running Renegade Raiders, so, like, their Venomcrawler shoots into your Terminators or something, you're just going to, like, laugh it off. Also, quick side note, so I didn't know what obdurate meant, so I googled it, and apparently it means stubbornly refusing to change your point of view, which I love. That fits CSM, like, so perfect, so good job, GW. You get a small little clap from me. Alright, next up though, so we've got Warp Charged Engines. So, in your movement phase, 1 Heretic Astartes transport or mounted unit from your army that has not been selected to move yet. Until the end of the phase, if your unit advances, do not make an advance roll. Instead, until the end of the phase, add 6 inches to its move characteristic. So, unfortunately, I guess, it only works on transports and mounted. By the way, we literally only have 2 mounted units, so Lord Discordant and Bikers. Luckily, it affects Lord Discordant, so it gains some points there. Now, never forget, you have the Assault keyword on top of that. So, like, your Bikers and your Lord Disco, even your transports, because they got the firing ports, so you're still shooting there. Well, boom, I just gained 6 inches to the range of all my weapons. With the transports especially, this is definitely where it's going to shine. You can get your troops where you need to be. So, if you need line of sight, you need to get on objective, you need to screen, whatever your reason is, it gets very powerful there. On top of that, we got a super duper ultra wombo combo with another stratagem that we'll get to in a second, so those work hand in hand. Your Bikers, by the way, they dropped in points. They're only 70 points now. That is a steal. These guys are some of the more efficient, like, resiliency, and they even have pretty good damage, because don't forget, you got the Meltas, and then you got the Combi Bolters on top of it, with +1 AP. Yeah, dude, it gets pretty strong. And with the Lord Discordant, this plays into getting a turn 1 charge. Like, turn 1 charge is no issue whatsoever. Maybe you give them the Scout Move Relic, and then you do the +6 inches. Again, there's a way to advance and charge. Like, a first turn charge is almost guaranteed with units like that. Bikers as well, they got boosted in melee too, so maybe, like, they're a good pick for that. So while this might seem boring, like normally the automatic advances or whatever, Renegade Raiders, of all the detachments, all the armies in the game or whatever, they can make, like, the most use out of that. It's actually pretty strong. Alright, next up though, so we've got Scour and Seize. In the fight phase, 1 Heretic Astartes unit from your army that has not been selected to fight yet. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets a unit within range of an objective marker, that attack has the Precision ability. What's awesome about this one is it works on literally any unit, man. So you could have Mauler Fiends, Defilers, that sort of stuff, Possessed, any of them. Suddenly they're like mulching up characters. Also, it too is a battle tactic, so, you know, you could kill 2 different characters, as rare as that will be, though it will come up from time to time. I believe the mission, what is it, the Scouring or the Ritual, something like that. There are missions where, like, the primary revolves around characters being on objective. Suddenly, dude, this, like, counters that. That is, like, a big deal when it comes to those sort of missions. This is very much going to be like one of those gotcha strategies. Like, obviously, you warn your opponent. You always warn your opponent before the game starts. And if you're like a good guy, you warn them as the game's going through or whatever. But very much, it's easy to forget. People are going to just like put their big bomb on the center of an objective and just be like, "Come at me, bro." And you're gonna be like, "Okay, that's no problem." So, very much, this could be game turning. Like, you're not going to use it all the time, obviously, but when it does come up, that very much could, like, flip the game in your favor. Don't forget, too, Assassinate. Maybe you get to do, like, fixed objectives. Maybe they're running, like, 6 different characters or something. Very much, I think that's a powerful one. Talking about powerful ones, we've got probably the best stratagem in the book. Yeah, probably one of the best in the book. So, Ruinous Raid. In your shooting phase or your fight phase, one Heretic Astartes unit from your army that disembarked from a transport this turn and has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, if the target is within range of an objective marker, you can reroll the hit roll and the wound roll. So, like I said, this is probably the best one. Now, yes, it does have the rider if you need to, like, disembark from a transport, but depending on how you did your list, like, that really shouldn't be an issue. I think double Havocs, so 2 Havocs and a Rhino is going to be, like, the most common sight on the planet. That's how I've ridden, like, literally every single one of my lists. I run it. One with Las Cannons, one with the Reaper Chain Cannons, and my god, dude, you toss the reroll hits and wounds on top of that with +1 AP, it gets nuts so good. Oh yeah, and don't forget, it's a freaking battle tactic, so you get to use it twice if you need to. It is like, yeah, it's one of the best stratagems in the book, one of the better ones in the game. Now again, it does have the rider of the transport, but that's really not that big a deal. You can also do the, what they call the daisy chain, so like, you have a Havoc starting in a Rhino, and then you have Havocs like on foot right outside of it. You disembark your one squad when the game starts, or whatever you need to, and then embark the next squad, and then next turn you just do it all over again. So there's very much strategies you can use to get like the most out of this, and I think that's going to be a common sight. Like, again, like, you guys need to practice, get good at it, but yes, that's definitely something that you want to use like every single turn if you're able. On top of that, it works both fight and shooting phase. So maybe you got a Brick of Chosen, maybe you got a Land Raider, and you got like Possessed coming in there, something like that. Like, very much, man, ultra powerful, and again, it's a battle tactic. So Chosen, especially with like a Lord attached, they're gonna freaking love that one. I think this is a stratagem that, like, the army sort of revolves around. Like, it's not where it gets its power at all, but it gets, like, super ultra busted extra power from it, so very much that's one you're going to use every single turn. Like I said, these guys are going to be CP hungry, man, so already that's, like, 1 automatic CP. You got the Armor of Contempt, that's another one you're going to want to use every single turn. The auto advance 6 inches, like, you're not going to use that every turn, but when it comes up, that could be, like, a big deal. So again, as we go through these, like, make sure you're thinking of ways to, like, regen or, like, save your command points, for sure. Alright, next up, we got one of the, like, I love this one for, like, combos and, like, wombo combos, that sort of stuff. So, Opportunistic Raiders. At the end of the fight phase, one Heretic Astartes unit from your army that was eligible to fight this phase. If your unit is not within engagement range of 1 or more enemies, it can make a normal move of up to 6 inches or 12 inches if it was a mounted unit. Otherwise, your unit can make a fallback move. It cannot embark upon a transport if it had disembarked earlier that same turn. So, alright, this becomes one of the very strongest stratagems, like, in the book, at least when used with a particular unit. That particular unit being Warp Talons. So, Warp Talons, if they're not in engagement range at the end of the fight phase, they get to go back into strategic reserves. If it's your turn, then on the next turn, your opponent's turn, you get to rapid ingress them in, so it's not like you're, like, losing movement or anything of that sort. This is one of the most busted combos you could possibly do. I think a brick of 10 Talons will be, like, very common. Even MSU, that's fantastic. On top of it, you don't have to use it on Warp Talons. My Lord Discordant, he loves that one. A lot of my test games, especially when I was first testing out Renegade Raiders, I was bringing a Lord Discordant every single list, because, yeah, I mean, I've been looking for excuses to actually run this guy. He got a lot of use out of it. He's mounted, so he gets to move his full 10-inch move when he falls back. You can get around screens, you can move behind line of sight, you can get onto objectives, like, you name it, man, they can do it. If the unit hadn't disembarked earlier that turn, you can get them inside a transport, so suddenly they're safe. So yeah, you can have, like, Chosen run up, murder something, then run into safety of a Rhino. Like, dude, it opens up so many different combos. I think this is very much, this could be one of the stronger stratagems, and again, one that you're going to want to use, like, every single opportunity you get. Doesn't restrict you to having to move closer to the nearest unit or any of that sort of stuff. You literally go wherever you want. With jump pack infantry especially, they can jump over screens. My god, man, yeah, this one's one of the more powerful ones I've seen. Alright, last up though, so we've got Reaver's Haste. So in your charge phase, one Heretic Astartes infantry or mounted unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, your unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. If you select one or more units that are within range of an objective marker as your charge target, add 1 to the charge roll. So maybe that doesn't seem like much, which I'm sure most people would understand that, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. But I think this is actually a keystone strategy. At least for like your first and maybe second turn, you like plan your first and second turn around that. If you know you can get an advance in charge, yeah, man, I'm gonna advance my Lord Discordant, my Demon Prince, my Possessed Bomb, my Chosen Bomb, like you name it, you're gonna advance them up. Don't forget, you got the Assault keyword, so you're not losing out on your shooting. You can wombo combo it with the auto 6-inch advance as well. So you get, yeah, dude, you're adding the 16-inch movement and then a charge on top of that? Like, yes, dude, I think, like I said, I think you plan your first and second turn around that. Overall, these are some fucking fantastic stratagems, excuse my French. I don't think there's like even a single bad one, and honestly, I could see myself wanting to use every single one of those every single turn. What's cool is the majority of them aren't restricted at all, so you can use them on Defilers, Mauler Fiends, Chosen, anything, man. And the ones that do have restrictions, it's not that big a deal. Having to jump out of a transport, well, guess what? I'm bringing 3 of them anyways. It's really not a big deal. I definitely think you want to practice and think through like how to get the most of these without bankrupting yourself, because very much, man, like I said in the beginning, you're going to be so CP starved pretty much the entire game. Abaddon gains some value, Master Executions gain some value, the Enhancement gains some value, any of those sort of things. I think they do belong in a lot of lists. Now, obviously, if you're a good general and like, again, you get a lot of practice through, that's not always going to be the case, but again, I think it's something you guys need to like think through and practice and only use in like the situations where they're most important. Now I will say the reroll all hits and wounds, that's when you're going to use like all the freaking time. And then also the armor contempt, the -1 AP when you're getting attacked, that is a huge deal, helps your resiliency. CSM aren't known for being the most resilient units, so that's like a huge boost there. So already, man, we're looking at one of the best detachment rules, some really solid enhancements, and then some of the best stratagems. But what about some of their top units? What are some like combos you can bring to the table as well? Well, obviously you got a lot of picks there. So I will say I'm not showing off like any and every unit. What I'm trying to show off in this case is just units that like obviously exceptionally pop with this detachment, or I think that like maybe you wouldn't consider normally. So just because I don't like point out a specific one, so I don't think like a Vindicator, I don't think I had him picked out here. Obviously he's super ultra good, especially with +1 AP, so just because I don't mention a specific unit doesn't mean that they don't belong here. Obviously, I don't want to do like a 20-hour video if I can help it, so so yeah, had to cut down a little bit. So first of all, we got a Huron. You guys knew this guy was coming. He was like, you know, he's the leader of this detachment, or this legion, so of course I have to include him. He's got some really damn good abilities as well. So first up, he's got the Tyrant of Badab. So while this model is leading a unit, add 1 to the objective control for models in that unit. He can be attached to Legionaries or Chosen. You attach him Legionaries, man, if you're doing a brick, that would be 30 objective control. In fact, it'd be 32 objective control, sitting on the center objective, something like that. Like I've mentioned a million times, objectives are how you win the game. Don't forget, they can advance and still shoot, so like you have extra movement on top of that. I think that's pretty strong. His next ability though is probably better, so Red Corsairs. After both players have deployed their armies, you can select up to 3 Heretic Astartes infantry units from your army and redeploy them. When doing so, you may place them into reserves, regardless of how many units are already in reserves. So the reserves part, that's like, you know, that's cool, and I do think a little combo you might consider would be like Felgor Beastman, because yeah, man, you deploy them on the board and maybe get more info on where your opponent's deploying his stuff, and then you put him in reserves. Cool, I still get to bring him out first turn, so I think that's a fun combo. Obviously, you got like the straightforward route. You put like a bunch of infantry on one of the flanks, your opponent like counter deploys, and then you just move him to the opposite flank. This dude, by the way, is only 80 points. 80 points to redeploy 3 units? That's ultra competitive and like sneaky good. I don't think a lot of people like understand how valuable that is, because deployment, man, deployment very much can win or lose you the game, so like that's huge just on its own. And then finally, he's got Hamadira's Knowledge, so once per battle, when an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9 inches of this model's unit, if this model's unit is not within engagement range of 1 or more enemies, you may make a normal move of up to D6 inches. So obviously, you know, it kind of sucks that it's random, because you might just roll 1, but on average, you should get 3.5, so, you know, about 4 inches or so. That can be huge, man. That can get you out of charge range, get you out of line of sight, get you onto objective. Again, he's got +1 objective control on top of that. Those are all huge. On top of all that, so again, he's 80 points. He's He's got a 4-up in ball. He has pretty decent damage. Never forget, you can give him precision. You can give the whole unit precision at that. So his, in melee, he's got 6 2-damage attacks with -2, potentially -3 AP. And then his flamer's pretty decent as well. Strength 6, -1 AP, but potentially -2. Ignores cover, 1 damage each. Like, that's not bad in the least bit. Very much, I think Huron belongs in a lot of lists. I don't think he's an auto-include at all, but for how cheap he is and, you know, how much value he adds to, like, Chosen or Legionaries of the sort, yes, I definitely think he's worth consideration. Alright, next up, though, we've got Abaddon. So, Abaddon, he works on a lot of lists. Like, you would think, like, Veterans of the Long War is where he belongs the most, and definitely he brings value there. I think Red Corsairs is where this guy's gonna especially pop. Red Corsairs are Pact-bound Zealots. Wait until I get the review up for that. Reason being should be obvious. So, he's got his War Master ability. You can give a 6-inch bubble of reroll all your hit rolls for pretty much your entire army. Anything but Damned, and we don't care about Damned. Yeah, dude. +1 AP, reroll all hits, freaking assault on top of that, advance and charge stratagem. This guy's a butcher in melee. Like, oh my god. Now, he is expensive. He did drop 15 points, so he definitely gained, you know, gained a little bit of strength there, but my god, is he powerful. Maybe you don't need the reroll hits because you're like, I don't know, you're badass, you don't need it. Well, boom, you do the Mark of Chaos Ascendant, you give a 6-inch bubble of a 4-up in ball to your infantry or your mounted. Lord Discordant suddenly gets a 4-up in ball. Your Chosen, all your Legionaries got a 4-up in ball. Like, all that, man, ultra powerful. On top of that, and one of the big reasons you would want to consider this guy is Dark Destiny. So anytime you make a Dark Pact, if you roll a 7-up on the leadership test, you gain a CP. That's a little over 50% chance. Maybe you combo that with the enhancement as well. Like, your odds of getting a CP each turn actually, like, jump up pretty high. I very, very, very much think Abaddon is, like, worth looking at for most of your lists. You can go the old school route. You can do the Abaddon Castle. Just bring a bunch of vehicles and, like, Havocs and that sort of stuff. Have them trundle up the board with them. Again, with the assault keyword, you guys are getting a bunch of movement, getting the line of sight that you need, all that sort of stuff. Again, I very much think Abaddon, this is probably the detachment he works best with, this or Pact-bound Zealots. Next up, we got Daemon Prince with Wings. So the reason I think he especially shines is those enhancement. You can give him reroll all hits, all wounds, and do the deep strike on top of that, so it's really not a big deal there. The +1 AP gets pretty huge, so like his strike profile baseline is going to go to AP 3. I would probably do Corn, so he's going to strength 10 at that point. Obviously, you can also go with Slanesh. You can go Zinch. I mean, the 6 shots with the AP 2, like 2 damage heavy bolter, like that's not bad at all. I do think too, Slanesh might be valid too, +2-inch movement with the assault, advance and charge, all that sort of stuff adds up. He sucks, well, he doesn't suck, but he's not like the best in most legions. Well, in this legion especially, I do think he shines. So yeah, if you're a big Daemon Prince fan, definitely, definitely take a look at him. Next up, you knew this guy was coming, the big man himself, Mr. Lord Discordant. So normally when I bring these up, he's a meme. Like, yeah, almost every other Legion review I've done, this guy's a meme. Well, here, no, he's actually valid. Legitimately, my first, like, 3, maybe even, like, 4 test games, I brought him every time, mostly just for the fun of it. He performed so damn well. Pretty much every turn, first turn charge was no problem at all. A lot of times I gave him the advance, or not the advance, I gave him the Scout Relic. The other times I give him the reroll all hits and wounds. If you want to, you can put him in reserves and have him come in like second turn, like that's totally valid. Get him within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone, not hard at all. Pretty much every single stratagem, like literally, aside from the disembarking from transport one, every single stratagem works on this guy, so you can boost him up a boatload. Now, yes, he's not the most competitive. He's way too expensive. 190 points, I can bring a lot of good units for 190 points, but if you've been looking for a legion or looking for a reason to use this guy, Red Corsairs is like the legion you use him with. In fact, I have a really fun list I'm going to show you guys in a little bit that like runs this guy to the max, so you'll see. But yeah, man, if you're going for the rule of cool, you can't really do much better than this. Alright, next up, we got the Lords, so I just combine them all together, but all 3 of the Lords, and reason being is because of their Lord of Chaos ability. So, once per battle round, 1 unit from your army can be targeted with a battle tactic stratagem for free, even if somebody else used it. So that's a huge deal, man. Reroll all hits and wounds, armor contempt, the, precision, like, you got a bunch of options there. I think Lords, like, they do belong in pretty much every single list. I don't think you bring a list without the Chaos Lords, because you just get so much value from that. And again, we're super duper ultra, like, starved on CP. These guys directly help fix that. On top of that, the foot version, which I think is the best, he has his chance for glory. So once per battle, you can give him +1 attacks, strength, armor pen and damage. Don't forget you're getting an additional AP on top of that. So what, you go to AP 4 on your Demon Hammer or your Power Fist. He has Dev Wounds as well, so if you give him the reroll hits and wounds stratagem, or enhancement, like that adds up on him. I think he's very valid. The Terminator Lord, I don't think he'll be as popular. I'm not sure about Terminators with Red Corsairs. Like, for sure, you totally can use them, and if you like Terminators, a lot of people get good results. Like, obviously you can do that way, but I'm not, I'm not as sold. But he does have the Lord of Chaos ability, so if you are bringing Terminators, very much I would consider this guy. And then lastly, the Foot version, he does have good power. So you got your what? You got your Advance and Charge, your Assault keyword, and then he can pile in, consolidate an additional 6 inches on top. And he's a jump infantry, so you can jump over screens, all that sort of stuff. I think all three of them are valid, especially the Foot version, but yes, I think they belong in pretty much every single list. Ooh, alright, next up. So this guy is probably the best character you can pick for this Legion, and CSM as a whole, man. As I've done all these reviews, like, over time, yes, I've come to decide that the Terminator Sorcerer, he's the best HQ we have, at least for the general HQs. With the Red Corsairs especially, he has his Death Hex ability. So, at the start of your shooting phase, one model with this ability may use it. You choose an enemy unit within 12 inches invisible and roll a dice. On a 1, your day is ruined, but on a 2-up, until the start of your next move phase, each time an attack targets that enemy unit, improve the armor pin by 1. So dude, if they're on objective, you're basically improving the armor pin by 2. You combo that with Chance for Glory, he's going up to what, AP 5? Your Meltas are going to AP 6? Like, it gets freaking nutso. He's good in every detachment, but he's especially good here. On top of that, he's got warp time, so if you got him with Terminators, you get to reroll your advance and charges. Ah, goddamn, dude. Don't forget you got an assault, so you're like getting the extra movement. You got the advance and charge, so you're getting like super ultra extra movement. This guy is an auto include times 10. I would bring 3 of them if I could. Honestly, you probably don't because you can only use Death Hex once per turn, so like be careful there. Speaking of Death Hex, it lasts until your next movement phase. So you get to use it in your shooting phase, your fight phase, and then your opponent's fight phase, so you get 3 phases of value out of that. How could you not bring this guy at only 90 points? On top of that, he has actual damage output, so his Infernal Gaze, if you go focus, has Dev Wounds, 24-inch range, D6 shots, strength 6, AP 2 to AP 4, somewhere between that, D3 damage. Like, goddamn, that's pretty good. His melee's not bad at all. His force weapon, you got 4 attacks, strength 6, minus 2 to 3 AP, D3 damage as well. And then finally, he has Chaos Familiar, so once per battle, you can blank out a damage coming into him. So he's totally valid solo. Truthfully, that's how I normally run him. Now, he is ultra valuable, especially here. He's ultra valuable, so like, you gotta consider, I do think a bodyguard, like, yeah, it's worth running. It's pretty expensive, but it could be worth running. And then lastly, he's got a freaking Terminator profile, so 2-up save, 4-up pinball, T5, 5 wounds, again, he's blanking damage. This guy auto-include times 1 at least, probably times 2. I could see a lot of lists wanting to bring 2 of these guys, so you got the redundancy. Next up, so we got Legionaries. How could I not include these guys? They're already one of the very best battle line in the game, mostly because they're so cheap. They have really good melee output, and then they're really cheap. They have 2 objective control on top of that. If you got Huron, they got 3 objective control. Veterans of the Long War ability, so they get to reroll wound rolls of 1. If the target's on objective, which is our main target, you just reroll all the wound rolls. So maybe you got a Terminator Sorcerer nearby. Their heavy melee weapons are going to AP 4 at that point. Oh, dude, man, yeah, they get pretty nuts. Obviously, like, you're gonna run them in a Rhino most of the time, so you can reroll all the hits, all the wounds. Like, they're great in every Legion, they're just great in every army, period, but suddenly here, they, like, super duper ultra pop. Very much, Legionaries, they are an auto-include. Next up, okay, so this is something I really do love about this detachment. The Cult Marines get extra value because of that extra AP. So like your rubrics, dude, they're going to AP 2, ignores cover baseline. Again, you bring the Terminator Sorcerer, AP 3 baseline. And don't forget, they got Icon and Flame, so critical wounds would go to AP 4. Ignores cover, so there's no ignoring that. These guys get super duper extra value. In fact, you might argue they're better than Legionaries. They still have 2 objective control as well. You still jump them out of a transport and reroll the hits and wounds. You wouldn't really do that with Flamers, and also they have Bringers of Change, so they already reroll their wounds, so not sure why I brought that up. But yeah, Rubik's very much worth looking at. And on that same token, Plague Marines, especially melee Plague Marines, man. Again, maybe you combo it with a Sorcerer. You got AP 4, reroll all hits, all wounds, T5, 2 objective control. They're relatively cheap. Again, like, these guys give Legionaries a run for their money, and you don't normally say that. So both of the Cult Marines very much I think are worth including. Rubrics too, with the Flamers, they give you Overwatch play, which is huge, especially if your opponent like trumbles onto an objective. Like you're definitely gonna love that there with the plus AP. I love it. It's one of my favorite things about this attachment. All the options you got, man. All the units. So Rubrics are already great, but all the units that you can like bring up a notch, very much are starting to get even more value out of everything. Next up, so we got Chosen. So Chosen are fine baseline, but dude, when you include the additional AP, even without a Terminator Sorcerer, so you just go to AP3, that's when these guys really pop. On top of that, they can advance and charge baseline. They can also fall back, shoot, and charge. So that's big for like secondaries, objective play, and again, it plays directly into your assault keyword. So they don't have the best shooting, but still, you get to shoot no matter what. You get to attach characters on it, so free battle tactics, I'm here for that. They also have an icon, so like they're rerolling their leadership when it comes to the dark packs. They got a price break, they're super cheap, man, 125 points, and best of all, probably the best thing about them, they fit in a Rhino. You can bring a bomb of them with the Lord, jump them out, and then reroll all your hits, all your wounds, advance and charge if you didn't move with the Rhino. Like, yeah, dude, Chosen, definitely worth looking at. Next up, we got Accursed Cultists. So what I love about these guys is they have scouts. So your army's already really fast. Like, you're one of the faster CSM legions, at least. Well, these guys have scout 6-inch, so like, boom, dude, I'm getting up the board, like, super quick. On top of that, they're super cheap now, 85 points. So you got a little, like, chaff, like, screen you can toss out there. You don't really care if they, like, live or die. Maybe they get on objectives with their, that's right, the OC got, this is an old card, the, objective control's down to 1. But either way, at 85 points, these guys are a steal, especially when you're boosting their AP. They get, like, obviously they get extra value there. They're, like, worth more than their points, damage-wise. Next up, we got Possess. So, if you guys know me, I've always loved Possess. I think even at just AP1, I think they're fine. Dude, you bust them up to AP2, it becomes a big deal there. Maybe you jump them out of a Land Raider. I wouldn't necessarily do this, but maybe you jump them out of a Land Raider. Suddenly you're going to reroll hits and wounds with the dev wounds on top of it. Better yet, you combo it with a Sorcerer. Now you're going to AP3 on a 125 point unit. On top of all that, they're super quick and super resilient. So 9-inch move, T6, and then they got a 5-up invol. Like, at 125 points, I think these guys are a steal. They, in my opinion, they're great in most legions. In Red Corsairs, again, man, they bring units that, like, aren't normally the best. They bring them up a notch. I think these guys are super valid, super strong, in fact, with Red Corsairs. Next up, we got Havocs. These guys are an auto-include. I think two of them, so you can fill up a Rhino. I think they're an auto-include for literally every single list you write. You'll see when I load the list later. I'm pretty sure I brought 2 Havocs in all of them. You can go either route. Me, personally, I do one squad with las cannons, the other with chain cannons. With orcs around, maybe Chaos Cults. Check out the review. All the hordes that are, like, showing up more, I think chain cannons have a lot more value. Don't forget, you're getting +1 AP. So, you know, that won't always come up with the cover, but maybe they're in the open. Maybe deploy them 6 inches high, like in ruins or whatever, they get +1 AP there. Better yet, maybe you combo it with the Sorcerer, so that has a lot of value. With the chain cannons too, never forget that you got dark packs, so you can do lethal hits. So you'd be shooting into, I don't know, a Chaos Knight or something, you'll still do an okay amount of, like, chip damage off of them. And then obviously las cannons, those will just delete tanks every now and then. You know, it is variable damage, but regardless, at 120 points, very much I'm bringing these guys. When you bring them, how you need to look at them, it's 2 units and a Rhino. So however many points that is, that's what? 240 plus 75, so like 315 points or something. I would pay 315 points for all the freaking damage output they're putting out with the reroll hits, reroll wounds. These guys are the prime target for it. Very much, I think Havocs, they belong in any and every list. Like, you don't even think about it. Probably, and how I've been doing it, I just start every single list with, 2 Havocs and a Rhino. Next up, so we've got Bikers. Of course, doesn't include these guys. So, dude, they're already great. They got a price break, so they're only 70 points. 70 points for 12-inch move, T5, 9 wound equivalent with 2 Meltas or 2 plasma guns, whatever you want there. They have pretty decent melee. It's going to be strength 5, -1 if they're on objective, hopefully. Like, that definitely adds up. They got the Chaos icon, so you're, like, pretty guaranteed to get your dark packs without, like, killing yourself or whatever. Very much, I think Chaos Spikes, I think they're fine in every Legion. Red Corsairs, I'm not sure they're an auto-include, but at 70 points, they're just so damn efficient. You very much could make use of these guys. I think what they'll be best is either holding objectives, so, like, you get them on objective, and then you're chosen, you're possessed, everybody else just keeps rushing forward. These guys just sort of, like, chill in the back, or they work perfectly fine as, like, screens and move blockers, that sort of stuff. Bikers, like I said, they're fine in every single Legion. You put them in Red Corsairs, they especially pop, especially with the stratagems you got. You could do, like, bricks. Yeah, you do a 6-man brick of Bikers, probably get really good value out of there. For the price you're paying, like, really good. I didn't even realize until now, they're 2 objective control, like, obviously that has value. Yeah, dude, if you've been skipping Bikers, no, at 70 points, they are, like, ultra super duper efficient. Next up, alright, these guys are the all-star. These guys they're already the best unit in the book, in my humble opinion. With Red Corsairs, they're the best unit, like, in the Legion, by far. Reason being, you got the fallback stratagem, that at the end of the fight phase, you can fall back, and again, their ability lets them go into strategic reserves, and then you can, like, rapid ingress, you do all that sort of stuff. I will say with rapid ingress, again, we are starving for command points, so like that won't always come up. You either won't have the CP for it, like period, or you want to save those command points for the reroll hits and wounds or whatever other stratagem you got. So that is a little iffy there. You don't always need to use it, but maybe, and I think the way to go and what I'm going to start doing, running bricks of 10. I think bricks of 10 in every Legion is fine, and Red Corsairs, I think like that's probably the way to go. Dude, you're going to piss off your opponent with that combo. They're basically going to be invulnerable, so long as you can keep them out of line of sight or whatever, they're always just going to go up into strat reserves and just annoy the heck out of your opponent. On top of that, Warp Claws, man. 4 attacks, Strength 5, AP 2 baseline, AP 3 with your Detachment, AP 4 with the Terminator Sorcerer, reroll all wounds. These guys are one of the best units in the entire game. Very much, I think they belong in every single list. I think just like the Havocs, they're an auto-include. I would include either a Brick, and then the 2 Havocs and the Rhino, or bring like 3 MSU squads of these guys, the Havocs and the Rhino. So that's like attacks that every list needs to start with. Next up, we got Venomcrawler. Venomcrawler at 110 points, this guy is such a steal. He's like the perfect skirmisher. He's like, yeah, dude, he's like the spitting image of what a skirmisher should be like. So 12-inch move, fairly resilient, so T9, 9 wounds, he's got the 5-up invul, he's got 2 excruciator cannons, so 36-inch range, 12 shots, strength 6, AP 1, potentially AP 2, potentially AP 3, if you bring the Terminator Sorcerer, 2 damage each. What I love about this guy is you can use lethal hits on him. So if you're shooting a vehicle, definitely, man, consider using a lethal. That way you're like definitely plinking some wounds off there. I've had times where he does like 6 damage to like a random land raider or whatever. Definitely get value there. On top of it, he's got Soul Eater, so if you finish a unit in melee, you get +1 attack to all of your weapons. So your excruciator cannons are going to 14 attacks, again with the boosted AP. Don't forget you got the assault keyword. Dude, like there's nothing not to love about the Venomcrawler. Again, I think just like a lot of the units I'm saying, they're good in every Legion. They are especially good with Renegade Raiders. Next up, we got the Destructor, the Predator Destructor. So where this guy super duper ultra like crazy pops is its Destructor ability. When you target an enemy infantry unit, you improve your armor pin by 1. So baseline, so long as you're shooting infantry and they're on an objective, you're getting +2 AP. That's the biggest thing holding back the autocannon is that's only AP 1. Boom, dude, going to AP 3 into infantry every time. You'd have 6 shots if they're within 24-inch range, strength 9, again, AP 3, 3 damage each, combo with the Sorcerer, AP 4. This becomes the, like, probably the most, like, points efficient model in the game when it comes to damage output. On top of that, you got the T10 profile, 10-inch move with the assault keyword. Oh man, there's nothing not to love about this guy for only 130 points. If you guys didn't already know, Destructor, so obviously you got the plus AP, so that's like a huge region, you bring it there. But Destructor is like the best version of the Predator. You give him the las cannons, that way he's anti-everything. You shoot vehicles, you shoot elites, you shoot chaff, it doesn't matter. He's got the Combi Bolter and the Havoc Launcher on top. I'm like surprised he's still 130 points. Very much, this guy's like an auto-include in most lists, very much in Renegade Raiders. Next up, we've got the Humble Rhino. Like, you guys should have expected this coming. This is, I would argue, it's the best transport in the game. At only 75 points, like, how could you not love it? 12-inch move, that's gigantic. T9, 10 wounds. It's got firing ports, so if you got, like, Havocs in there, you got 2 las cannons or two chain cannons shooting out each turn. Obviously, though, the big reason you're bringing it is the stratagems. So reroll all hits, all wounds, the auto 6-inch advance, all that sort of stuff. After he drops off his squad, you can rush him forward and like move block or just like tie up a shooty like infantry unit, all that sort of stuff. On top of it, he has okay damage output, at least for 75 points. He has pretty good damage output. Got the Combi Bolter and the Havoc Launcher. So into big blobs of chaff, like very much you start getting your like points efficiency out of this dude. Again, when you combo with the stratagems, like, how are you not bringing... I would bring at least 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4. Like, time will tell how many you want to bring, but at the very least, I would bring 2 with pretty much every single list I write. Speaking of army lists, so I do want to show you guys a few different styles, a few different like routes you can go, a couple different themes. Now, as usual, these aren't hyper optimized. The first 2 are a bit more like fluffy, a little bit more themed, but the third one is like the competitive style, or at least the route I would go with competitive. So first up, we got the, so this is like classic Red Corsairs, they're like the speedy boys or whatever. So this guy goes balls out, going full on speed. So what do we got? We got well, we got Huron, of course. We got 2 Chaos Lords, just with some Legionaries. We got 1 squad of Cultists, and then a squad of Felgor Beastmen. So again, these guys combo off Huron, so you can deploy them, get more information about your opponent's deployment and all that sort of stuff, and then boom, I'm just going to toss them in reserves and still bring them out first turn. Maybe then they can screen, charge somebody, any of that sort of stuff. So I do think that's like a clever little combo there. I got 3 units of MSU Accursed. Again, these guys have scouts, so they're playing into like your hyper movement. You get these guys up, they can like screen the rest of your dudes. I do like that there. I could see the argument for combining at least one of them, so you got a big squad. But at 85 points, man, like even MSU, they will take like a decent amount of shots to get through, and they do an okay amount of damage, especially with the +1 AP. I think they're worth bringing. I got some skirmishers with the Venomcrawler, so 2 Venomcrawlers. Again, I think they're good in every legion, but they're especially pop here. I got the auto include, so 2 units of Havocs, 1 with Last Cannons, 1 with the Reaper Cannons. I gave them their own Rhino, so they would go in a Rhino, and then I would do the 2 squads of Chaos Lords, put them in their own Rhino. Of course, I got the Warp Talons. So I did go MSU with this list, but again, I could very, very, very much see, you know, combining the 2 together, and truthfully, that might be the better route to go. This list has so many units as it is that, yeah, you don't need, like, the board coverage anymore, but that's, you know, that's up to you. And then, gotta have the Bikers. So I did have, at the end of this, I did have 70 points left over, so I ended up bringing a brick. I could certainly see either, like, detaching it, so you got 3 units of Bikers. Truthfully, maybe that's the better route to go, but I wanted to try, see, you know, see how a brick goes. So again, this is the more fluffy-ish kind of style. I do think it's powerful when you consider all the stratagems, all the special rules, the detachment ability, of course, all that sort of stuff. I do think it's very powerful, especially the Havocs, man. Them jumping out of a Rhino, doing the reroll all hits and wounds, like, that's going to be pretty strong. Warp Talon Brick would be ultra strong. I do think this could be competitive. Like, I would have no problem bringing this to a tournament, and yeah, I'd be pretty confident with it. Next up, though, okay, this is the one I'm especially excited to show you guys, and I have run this a bunch, and I've actually had pretty good results with it. It wasn't that bad at all. So we got the Lord Disco Bomb, as I'll call it. So what's fun is I gave them 3 relics. So we got the Scouts relic, we got the reroll all hits and wounds relic, and I even did the CP Regen relic on top of it. So, something that's cool about it, sort of cool, depends how you look at it for Lord Discordance. So they're mounted, right? Which makes no sense. They're literal demon engines. They're literally riding demon engines. How, you know, how do you not have the demon engine keyword, at least like vehicle or whatever? But being mounted is actually a perk, man. When they're locked in combat, they can't be shot. So that adds like extra adds to their resiliency. What's cool too, if you can keep them, so it's your turn, you charge somebody, maybe don't finish them off, but you try to stay locked in combat. On your opponent's turn, at the end of the fight phase, hopefully they survived, you get to fall back 10 inches and then charge whoever you want next turn, go around the screen, whatever, however you want to do that. Beyond the Lord Discos, which is incredibly fun, like how could you not want to do that? You got the threat saturation, so I brought 3 freaking Mauler Fiends, 2 Venomcrawlers to stay, you know, help stay caught up, and they also like hold down the objectives and skirmish over it. You got a Defiler, again, we're going for like distraction carnifex here. Now I did only bring an MSU squad of Warp Talons. I could see the argument to add more. We got 3 squads of Cultists, you know, need some board control. Somebody sit back and like screen and hold down the objective. And then again, you got the auto include, 2 Cultists going in a Rhino. So with this list specifically, I gave them both las cannons. You know, I just wanted some range firepower. Now, I like this list a lot. Again, I've been playing it a lot recently because, dude, I've wanted to run Lord Discordance for so long. Thank you, GW. Thank you, Dark Gods, for finally, like, granting my wish. And it's done surprisingly well, man. People have, like, hard choices to make. Even if they take out all 3 of the Lord Discordance, well, damn, dude, you still got 3 Mauler Fiends and a Defiler, like, in your face. Like, definitely had some power behind it. Now, one thing I probably would change, I do think it needs more infantry, or just like more like, yeah, board control, people like sit on objectives. So truthfully, I would probably get rid of the Defiler and just bring a bunch of like Legionaries or Chosen or like, you know, dealer's choice there. You don't get rid of any of the Lord Discordance. If you get rid of the Lord Discordant, like you can unsubscribe right now. I don't want to talk to you. No, I'm joking, of course. That would probably be a smart route too. Truthfully, you'd probably get rid of like both of them and then fill it up with good stuff. But regardless, this is a fun list. This is one you could totally play with your friends. And again, dude, it's powerful. They're going to have trouble. First turn charges ain't no thing with this list. It's ultra simple. Like, you're going to love the melee. So, again, this is a fun list, more fluffy or whatever. But maybe you're not going for fluff. Maybe you want something a little more competitive. Well, the style I would probably go with, and something I think this would be kind of common for a lot of the list, you go this route. So, lots of board control. You got a few bricks. So, alright. So first of all, we got a Chosen brick. So Chaos Lord, I gave him Mark of the Hound, so he's got the 6-inch scout move. You got a brick of Chosen behind it. Obviously, you toss them inside a Rhino, and now you got a Rhino with a 6-inch scout. That's pretty big. You got a Terminator Sorcerer. This guy is an auto-include. For this Legion especially, like, very much, you guys need to be, like, including this guy. In fact, for even the other lists I loaded, I probably should include him in there, but regardless, we got 2 MSU Legionaries. I could only afford 1 Chaos Lord, but whatever, man. You give them their own Rhino, and then, again, the auto-include of the 2 Havocs. This time it is auto-cannon and las cannons. They also have a Rhino, so we got 3 freaking Rhinos here, which I do think is important. Gives you the redundancy, lets you, you know, key off the stratagems. Like, I think that's a very powerful part of this list. We got 2 Predator Destructors. What I think is awesome about this style, with the +1 AP, and especially with the Sorcerer, you kind of save points, because you don't have to bring, like, a Forge Fiend or a Vindicator. You save a bunch of points, man. You save, like, 40 versus Vindicator, and what, 60 versus the Forge Fiend? So I do like that a lot. Yeah, again, you're saving points. That affords a unit of Bikers, unit of Cultists, like, you know, get you more board control. Speaking of, so we got 2 units of MSU Bikers, 2 units of MSU Warp Talons. Yet again, I could see combining them, and I do think that's probably the route. That's probably the route you want to go, is combine them together, so you got the Tin Man. Again, with the Rhinos, like, do the whole daisy chain method. So, like, you know, I'm not sure if there's enough infantry here, so maybe bring, hell, dude, you could bring a 3rd squad of Havocs. Like, get rid of something here. Bring a 3rd squad of Havocs, and then, yes, you could just have constantly going in and out of the Rhinos and getting reroll hits and wounds every single turn. With the Chosen, don't forget the battle tactics, so you can use the reroll hits and wounds for free every single battle round. Like, that's huge. These guys are going to be doing, with the +1 AP, the +2 AP, in fact, like, these guys are going to be butchering any and everything. This was the list I played, I think it was the last night, and I literally tabled my opponent for, well, I didn't, like, literally table him. I basically tabled him first turn. I went first, my turn ended, and we just called it. Like, I felt bad for the guy. Incredibly powerful. I am super excited to get Renegade Raiders on the table. Again, I think they are probably one of the most powerful legions, one of the most powerful detachments, period, in all of 10th edition. Like I said in the beginning, Soulforged Warpack, Pact-Bound Zealots, and then Veterans of the Long War, I think those are the detachments that, like, people will be running the most often. But for sure, at least for the next few months, for sure, Renegade Raiders are going to be the ones you see the most. So maybe you don't play CSM, or you don't play this Legion, or even if you do, man, mirror matches are going to be kind of common. Start figuring out ways of how you're going to deal with it. Luckily, we do have Armor Contempt, so you can subtract AP that's coming into you, so that will help a little bit. But regardless, I am super duper ultra excited to get the Renegade Raiders on the table. I'm super duper ultra excited to go to the next RTT, even a GT. Like, I need to look up any GTs that are coming up, because yeah, dude, I think these guys are gonna be contender. Like, very much. You bring out optimized lists, which, by the way, like, I think it's a good list, but it's not like hyper optimized. You bring out optimized lists, like, that's half the battle right there. Maybe you're not even that good at general or whatever. You have high odds of going 3-0, at least like 2-1. So again, I think you're going to be seeing a lot of Renegade Raiders. Now, time will tell what GW changes, because unfortunately, I do think, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of units get, like, points hikes. Maybe they even tweak some of the rules. Like, we'll see. The Warp Talons being able to fall back and automatically go into reserves, like, that's pretty strong. I'm not sure if it's, like, bustedly strong. And I don't think CSM overall, like, the entire codex, I do not at all think it's, like, overpowered at all. It's powerful, but it's, like, it's right there with, like, Orcs. I would say Necrons, the Hypercrypt Necrons, like, it's right there with them. So I don't think overall it's busted, and I could be wrong on Renegade Raiders, like, even getting changes or whatever, so time will tell. Anyways, though, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, not only on the list, but just, like, the army in general. I would love to hear your guys' experience, and definitely, like, your guys' list. That would help other people, too. Obviously, the more info we can get out there, the more, like, you know, it helps the community, helps the CSM community a bit more. So definitely, like, don't be afraid to post a comment below. Don't be afraid to ask any questions or give me suggestions on future videos. Regardless, though, so as always, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. At the very least, if you guys didn't already, give the video a thumbs up if you if you like the content. If you'd like to support the channel a bit more, I have a link to my Patreon below. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Best of luck out there, and remember, death to the false emperor.